everyone. Welcome to Avaya University's Overcoming Insecurity and Low Self-Esteem. I am Andy Anderson. My partner Ike Allen and I are the founders of Avaya University and the online community Enlightenment Village. Thanks so much for joining us. And in this event, we're talking with some incredible fellow experts. We're talking with therapists, psychologists, authors, and more who are here to help you build your confidence. They're here to help you learn to love yourself and be more compassionate to yourself and ultimately step into the powerful person that you are. So today, our guest will be talking about boosting confidence and self-esteem by overcoming your biggest crisis. So please welcome the fabulous Debi Silber. Hi there.
Oh, hi. I'm so excited to chat with you today.
We're right back at you. For those of you who don't know, Debi was also on our Breaking Free from Abandonment and Betrayal event, and I fell in love with her and had to have her back here, knowing that she would provide such great content for you today around this topic. And, you know, insecurity and low self-esteem is something I think pretty much every human being could probably relate to on some level. So I'm going to tell everyone a little bit about you, Debi, and then we'll dive into some questions. So Dr. Debi Silber is the founder of the PBT, which stands for Post-Betrayal Transformation Institute in New York. She is a holistic psychologist, a health, mindset, and personal development expert. She's an award-winning speaker, coach, and author. She has contributed to Fox, to CBS, The Dr. Oz Show, TEDx, The Huffington Post, Shape, Self, Health, Working Mother, Forbes, Psychology Today, WebMD, like so many more, just to name a few. And, you know, there's a million other things you're up to in the world, Debi, but let's just dive into this topic of insecurity and low self-esteem. So what do you think are some things that impact our confidence?
So much of it has to do with how did things start out? And I hate blaming it on our childhood, but we have to start there because that's where so many of our ideas are formed and so many of our beliefs are formed. And it doesn't start out as a belief. It starts out as a thought. Like, for example, let's just say when you were a little kid, you had some earth-shattering news to share with your mom, let's say, and she was in the kitchen about to make a phone call, and you race into the kitchen, and she was making the call, so she did like this, shh, she shushed you. You could have, at that very moment, interpreted that as, I'm not important. And here's what happens. Your mind always wants to prove you right. So now you have this idea in your mind, I'm not important. And what we feed grows. So now what's happening is you're looking for confirming evidence to support your belief. So all day long, you're searching around for evidence to support the belief of I'm not important. And then when something happens, like someone just closes a door on you or someone cuts you off, you're like, well, see, there you go. And it grows and grows. What we feed grows. And so it starts as that thought, we infuse it with some feeling, with some emotion, and then it becomes a belief. And our mind says, oh, I get it. You want this running all day long? I will just sort of keep this as I will almost like a program that's minimized on your computer. I will keep this as a subconscious program running all day long. Now, here's the thing. We have between 60 and 80,000 thoughts a day. Most of them are negative. So if we have a running program of I'm not important, and that runs 30,000 times a day in some way, shape, or form, it's no wonder why we have low self-esteem or low confidence. So it can start there, and then we just feed it. We fuel it. Not blaming it all on childhood, but a good part of it can start there.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. And I love that you mentioned that, right? We are responsible for feeding it and fueling it. Maybe we're not aware that it's something we're doing, but hopefully by being a part of this event, you're becoming aware, oh, wow, like these 30,000 thoughts a day or whatever are telling me I'm a piece of crap. Like that kind of sucks. Like, no wonder I don't feel good. You know? So, and also
Absolutely.
just that we look for proof, you know, that is so key. Our mind is just like, okay, yep, let's find some more proof. Let's grab it over here and over there. Yep, you're right. Like, I'm not important to people, or I'm not important or not noticeable or whatever. So yeah, I love it.
And actually, I even have you let me know, I have a scenario that I can give you where you can see this in motion.
Please.
Okay. So, and I use this when I speak sometimes when I'm talking about this exact point. So let's take Mary and Joe. Mary and Joe don't know each other, but they meet at the same coffee shop every morning before work. Mary and Joe get ready. They look nice. They go to the coffee shop. One day they go to the coffee shop. They get their coffee. They go over to where you put the, milk, cream, sugar in your coffee. And a guy barrels into them, spills coffee all over them. It goes completely all over them. I'm going to tell you the difference in how each responds based on their mindset, based on their programming. Okay, let's start with Joe. This happens to Joe. Now, Joe has an I'm not important belief going on. So Joe interprets this as, it spills all over him. The guy races out, doesn't stop to apologize. So this triggers Joe's I'm not important. So what does he think? He goes straight at, he looks at the door. He is racing after that guy. Who do you think you are to do that to me? He gets in his car. He wants to chase this guy down, doesn't find him. He goes home. He's got all kinds of road rage. Why? Because people are cutting him off, which triggers his I'm not important. Who do you think you are? He goes home. He goes to change. His wife is still there. She hasn't left for the day. She wants to tell him something cute that their son did. And he's like, I don't have time for this. Why? Because he's, I'm too important. His whole I'm not important thing is going on. He goes back to work. He's again road rage because people are cutting him off. I'm not important. Gets to work. Now, watch this. Because he has this I'm not important thing and what we feed grows, he is telling this to the people around him. Like energy attracts like energy. So now he's got a little bit of a crowd around him. And people are saying, oh, Joe, this happened to me. This happened to me. And now what's Joe feeling? I'm important. Because he has this crowd of negativity around him. So just imagine, just to completely play this up, the boss walks by. He's looking for a fourth for the golf outing. He sees all this going on. He's like, you know what? Joe's a loose cannon. I just can't take a chance on that. Tom, on the other hand, didn't want any part of that energy. The boss asked Tom. There happens to be a leadership position that opened up. They go out. They have a great day on the golf course. He offers Tom the job. Joe hears about this the next day. Well, of course, this triggers his I'm not important. Who does he think he is? I've been with the company 20 years, blah, blah, blah. So here's an example. What we feed grows. That's it. And it just goes on and on and on. Because he had that belief of I'm not important, all he's doing all day long is finding confirming evidence to support that belief.
Right. Yes. Yeah. And everyone watching right now, if you're starting to notice that, wow, like this is a cycle, right, in your life, first of all, like that's great that you're noticing it because that's the first step, right? So like, before we get on to, what was it, the woman's name in this example?
Mary.
Before we get on to Mary, like, so if someone's noticing right now that, oh my God, like this is me and this is my day-to-day life, like what do they do? How do they, start to get out of this cycle?
Awareness, like you said, you cannot change something you're not aware of. Awareness is absolutely, you are spot on, the first step, because now at least you're not going to catch a fraction of the amount of times you're doing this. But to start, even if you put a rubber band on your hand and every time you catch yourself, you snap the band not to hurt you, to remind you that here you are looking for that evidence and confirming that belief. And we have these neural receptors, we have these like tracks in our brain that get so well worn because all we're doing is repeating the same thoughts and beliefs all day long. It takes a pattern interrupt. And that pattern interrupt can be something as simple as snapping the band as that reminder and saying, stop, let me think a different way. Let me choose a different path. Let me create a new neural connection, lay down a different track that would support me so much more. And that's what Mary does.
Let's hear about Mary.
Okay, so here we are. We're back at the coffee shop. Same thing. Guy barrels into them. Coffee spills all over Mary. Now, Mary listened to your series right here. So she's been doing the work on herself. And she's like, okay, before I react and respond, I'm going to take 3 deep breaths. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to journal. I'm going to start doing some work. So the coffee spills all over her. She remembers what Andy said. She takes a deep breath. And because she looks up, she happens to catch Mike, the coffee guy. Mike looks up and says, Mary, come over here. Gives her some napkins to pat herself. He goes, I'm so sorry. The guy comes in every day. I know his wife's been sick. I put down his food. He was on the phone. And all I heard was, oh my God. He turned ghost white and he bailed. He goes, I hope she's okay. So with this, Mary lays down a track of life is short. Right then. Life is short. So she leaves and there's all this road rage and she's like, go ahead. Life is short. If you need to go ahead. Life is short. She goes home. She changes because she's taking her time. She's driving to work. She's looking around. She notices a fruit place, like, where they sell the fruit baskets, whatever. She's like, life is short. Life is short. Because of that, she's like, you know what? let me stop in and get a fruit basket for my team. They really, it's a great team. She does that, and she's talking to the fruit lady and having this wonderful conversation. So she has her fruit basket, and she's like, let me call my friends. Let me call my family. And they're like, Mary, it's so great to hear from you. Life is short. Life is short. This is what's going on. Mm-hmm. Mary gets to work. She gives the fruit basket. Mary, you're the best. Life is short. Life is short. Mary's thinking, I'm going to do this every week. You see, it's the same circumstance. But what meaning are we making out of that same experience? Coffee spilled all over both of them. Mm-hmm. It changed Mary's life for the better. But Joe, it just confirmed his belief.
Yeah, that's so powerful. It actually reminds me of, I don't know if you ever, I can't remember what book it was in. I think it's Stephen Covey who shared some story of, he gets on he gets on the subway, and I totally could be messing this up, but the message is the same at the end, right? And this guy gets on the subway with like 5 or 6 kids, and they're all rambunctious and crazy, and they're jumping on the seats, and they're bothering people and all this stuff. And the guy was, said to the other man, like, could you please control your children? Like, they're disrupting the people on this train. And the man was just kind of, silent, and all of a sudden finally said that, oh my God, their mom just died. We just came from the hospital. And like, I don't know how to handle it. I don't know how to help them. They don't know how to handle it. We're all just in a really tough space right now. Right. And then like the story is, this guy is like, okay, what can I do to help you? How can I help you get them home? How can, that's like this is all about insecurity and what stories we create based on what's happening in front of us. We never know what's happening with anybody. Right. And there's that very beautiful story of Mary and getting, the tip that his wife is sick or whatever. I mean, that stuff that opens our hearts, right? That changes the whole story and creates an empowering context. So I just had to throw that in there, because I think a lot of us get wrapped up into, thinking that like, oh, it must be about me, right? It must be about me and how my hair looks today, because that's why they spilled coffee on me.
And it feeds our insecurity. And I mean, my work is in betrayal. If anything is going to make you insecure, it's a betrayal because it's so intentional. Right. So with all of these things that could be misinterpreted, here's a rough one, because this was completely done to us. And the challenge with this is, even though it was done to us, and whether it's a family member, a partner, a coworker, a friend, it's not about us. That's the hardest one to believe, but it's true.
Absolutely. So before we dive a little deeper into betrayal, I'd love it if you would share, it seems like some people just have no issue with self-esteem, and then clearly others do. So why is that?
I think so much, like we said, so much of it has to do with upbringing. So much of it has to do with just the work they've done. I mean, it's interesting. Like last week I was at the beach, and God bless people. Some people are prancing around, and you'd look at them and you'd say, wow, I give you a lot of credit, because they're prancing around, and by other people's standards, they have no right to be prancing around, but they do. And you look and say, oh, you know what, you have a great self-esteem, where someone could look terrific, but meanwhile they have an extra 2 pounds or a little stretch mark or whatever, and they're covered up. So that's a part of self-esteem too. So much of it, I also have to believe it's in the work that we do, because when I think about what gives us confidence, it's having some kind of fear and doing something with it. Whatever that fear is, and whether it's a minor thing, speaking up at in a work scenario, or setting a boundary, or asking for something, whatever it is. It's when we have some sort of fear, and the only cure for fear, in my estimation, is action. So we have that fear and we do something about it. That's how we build confidence. Mm-hmm. How else can we do it? Because otherwise we have this fear and we've made it even bigger than it needs to be.
Right. Absolutely. So absolutely, action and getting in action in life is so key in building that confidence muscle. And all of a sudden, if you were afraid to speak in front of crowds, and then you get up there a few times, wow, that fear is dissipating, or it's less than, or now it's just excitement, as opposed to being afraid. So speaking specifically about betrayal, this is something, when we think of the word betrayal, at least I am like, wow, that's a big blow. That could be something that would really damage someone's self-esteem. So since you specialize in this, how do people heal from that? Like if
Yeah.
they've had this huge blow to their confidence.
Yeah, it's a process, and you know, as we spoke on your last summit, I did a whole study on this because it was totally selfish. I had my own betrayal from my family, and then my husband. I'm like, the people that I've trusted the most in my entire life, everybody that I truly put my trust in, besides my own kids, betrayed me. So I am obviously the poster child for this, and I need to figure this out. So I went into this PhD program in transpersonal psychology, the psychology of transformation and human potential, because I was transforming. I didn't understand it, but I needed to understand how the mind works, why we do what we do, and how it can heal. And while I was there, I did that study on how we experience betrayal. And truly, I wanted to understand and heal myself. I had no idea we would make the 3 discoveries that we made. And your question about how do we heal from it, one of the discoveries was we will go through these 5 proven predictable stages, and now we know what happens at every stage and what it takes to move from one to the next. But it's when we make these steps towards moving from one stage to the next, we inevitably heal. Now, I will tell you, there were 3 groups in my study who did not heal. They just did not. And it was always for the same reasons. If they were numbing, avoiding, distracting, so using food, drugs, alcohol, work, TV, keeping busy, reckless behavior, anything to numb, avoid, distract, they didn't heal. Now, I get it. I understand how painful it is. And maybe it made the day a little more tolerable, but they didn't heal. And I look at those tactics, and I understand why we do it. I mean, that's what my TEDx was about. It's like, you know, when you were a kid and when someone wanted to tell you something you didn't want to hear, you would take your fingers, stick them in your ears, and you say, la, 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 I don't hear you. Okay. When we use food, drugs, alcohol, work, TV, keeping busy, reckless behavior, anything, it's the adult version of la, 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 I don't hear you. It's the same thing, but we don't heal that way. The second group was when they were unwilling to accept their betrayal. They were unwilling. They refused to, it's a grieving process. They refused to grieve, mourn the loss. They didn't heal. They just didn't. And I remember a woman not long ago, she came into my office and she goes, how much is your program? You know, and she like, no, I'm ready. I'm like, I'm not even going to tell you because you have no intention of healing. You're so committed to hanging on to your story. You're staying right where you are. And this is a challenge too, because we have a very powerful story. Look at my story. The most important people in my life betrayed me, you know? Right. So when we're unwilling to move from that story, we don't heal. I mean, when we do, I can tell you what we get. My story now is 1 billion times better, right? Mm-hmm. And then the third group that didn't heal was when the betrayer had no consequences. And this was, let's say, in a marriage where, whether it was for religious reasons or just out of fear, there really weren't any consequences. I'll tell you, this was my most sick group. You just can't stay with that level of injustice, lack of truth. The body can't handle that.
So can you explain a little bit? I'm trying to understand what that means. What is it? So are you saying, like, let's say someone cheats on somebody else, like there's no consequences for, like, as in they just stay in the marriage and there's no big deal. You cheated on me, Susie, and that's cool. I'm just going to stay here. Is that what you mean? Okay.
Yes, that's exactly what I mean. And they try to make it work because whether they're, according to their religion, they weren't allowed to, or that was part of their religion, that they just stayed no matter what, or they were afraid to be on their own. Okay. This was by far the most sick group because they knew how wrong it was, but all of their reasons prevented them from doing something about it.
Got it. Okay. So those are like the main discoveries you found of people who couldn't heal. So what kinds of steps did I think you mentioned 5 steps that if people are actually going to heal, what they need to follow?
Yeah. Well, these are the 5 stages that were discovered in the study. You know, one thing we discovered was that healing from betrayal is very different than healing from death of a loved one, disease, even natural disaster, because it's so intentional. Betrayal affects the self. if you lose a loved one, you mourn the loss, you're sad, you miss them, but you don't question the love. With betrayal, you question everything. You question your sanity. You question yourself. I mean, everything comes into question. Healing from betrayal didn't quite seem the same as those other things. To me, because I've been through death of a loved one, I've been through disease. But I didn't want to assume I was the only one who felt this way. So I asked all my study participants, I said, if you've been through something else in addition to betrayal, a trauma, does it feel different for you? Every single one said, oh, it's very different. Mm-hmm. So it needed a new term. So the new term is post-betrayal transformation. And that's the state that you move to, complete and total healing from betrayal, because you've rebuilt the self. You've rebuilt everything that was shattered: confidence, self-esteem, that sense of rejection and abandonment, trust. That all has to heal. That all has to be rebuilt. So it needed that new term. The other one, and we can get to this later, was that there's this collection, physical, mental, emotional collection of symptoms so common to betrayal, it's become known as post-betrayal syndrome. Mm-hmm. So that's another thing. But the 5 stages were, this is what was consistent, and no matter what the timeline is, and it's different for everyone will go through, if they're going to totally heal, they're going to go through these 5 stages. So the first is like a setup stage. And this is where, if you imagine 4 legs of a table, the 4 legs being physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. What I saw with everyone, was me included, was this real heavy lean on the physical and the mental, and really neglecting the emotional and the spiritual. So what this means is we're really good at thinking and doing, and not really paying attention to feeling and being. Yeah. But in the feeling and being is where our intuition is. And we turn that down. And that really can serve us, because everybody in the study also said, yeah, I kind of felt like something wasn't right, but I didn't pay attention. I don't know. When I think about it now, it didn't feel right, but I blew it off. Mm-hmm. Stage 2, we're blindsided. Here's where, this is the scariest stage. This is the breakdown of the body, the mind, the worldview. This is discovery day. This is when we receive this news. And the body goes into a complete state of chaos. We've ignited the stress response. So we're headed for just about every stress-related symptom, illness, condition, disease. The mind is in a state of overwhelm. We cannot wrap our minds around what just happened. It's almost as if someone just took a mask and like, oh, you thought you knew me, but here I am.
Right.
Devastating. And our worldview is shattered. Our worldview is our mental model. This is safe. This is how the world works. These are the rules. These are this is how we play. Mm-hmm. And in an instant, that no longer exists, but a new worldview hasn't been constructed yet. So here's where the bottoms out on us. But think about it. If you're walking down the street and the bottom were to bottom out on you, you'd grab hold of whatever you could to stay safe and stay alive. Right. That's stage 3. Survival instincts emerge. It's the most practical stage. How will I survive this experience? Where do I live? How will I feed myself? How do I feed my kids? What do I do? Mm-hmm. This is the stage we get stuck in if we're not careful. If, however, we realize, yes, although there are lots of benefits we get from staying stuck, and there are many, happy to talk about them, but if we're willing to give up all those benefits, willing to grieve, mourn the loss, willing to let them go, willing to just really say, okay, there is a death of the old in order to rebirth the new, we can move to stage 4. Stage 4 is finding and adjusting to a new normal. Your old normal doesn't exist anymore. Here's where we say, okay, you know what? This is the beginning of my new chapter. My new, I'm taking what had been my entire experience and making it a pivotal chapter in my experience. And here's where we're starting to rewrite the rules. If a friend wasn't a good friend to you during this stage, if it was a one-sided relationship, we're like, you know what, I need something a little more now. We're redefining things. We're making our new space, our new home, whatever it is. We're really starting to recreate a new life. When we've settled into that new space and we can take a little bit of a breather, and now we're making sense and making meaning out of our experience, we can move into the 5th most beautiful stage. And this is healing, rebirth, and a new worldview. The body starts to heal. We've turned down the stress response. We're not in survival anymore. We didn't have the bandwidth for self-love, self-care. We were just surviving. Now we want to feed ourselves well. We want to work out. We want to take better care of ourselves. We love ourselves. So the body starts to heal. The mind, we're making new rules, new belief system. We're making meaning out of this, and we have a new worldview. based on what we've been through. And the four legs of that table, where we were only prioritizing the physical and the mental, now we are solidly grounded because we're focused on the emotional and the spiritual too.
Awesome. Yeah, it really is like, you're creating this whole new version of yourself or whole new self in this transformation. You may have just answered this, but is there anything more around like when you actually heal from betrayal, what it can lead to?
Oh, I mean, I see it with the people who go through the program. These are the strongest people I have ever known. We're never broken, bent, you know what I mean? But we felt, I'm a perfect example. I couldn't get out of bed. I was devastated, crushed, my heart destroyed, broken in a million pieces. But I look at it saying, if something so bad is going to happen, do something good with it. Mm-hmm. So you stop giving this so much power. So just even using me as an example, it catapulted me into this PhD program. Because of it, we made all these discoveries. I opened the PVT Institute, a real physical space in New York, the Betrayal to Breakthrough program, the podcast, certification programs, because once people heal, they can't help but want to share this. Right. And it gives them an opportunity to stay at the top of their game. So now we have these PVT hosts and practitioners popping up all over the country. I have a book deal. It's like, so all of these things happen because of the absolute hardest thing that ever happened to me. Right. And I'm no different than anybody watching this. I just looked at it saying, if I have something so horrible happen and I don't do something good with it, what is the point? What was the lesson? There's got to be a lesson here, and there's got to be some good that comes from something like this.
Do you believe that you are a more confident, higher self-esteem person now?
I can tell you, I can promise you, I see every single person who I see heal from betrayal they had no idea how strong they were until they've healed from this. Because you realize, on one level, you realize, really, you think something that small is going to get me based on what I've been through? I can only imagine, God forbid, losing a child is the only thing more devastating. But this is the person or the people that you have absolutely trusted. This was your sense of safety and security. This was home. This was where you felt I could let my guard down. These people have my back. And the very people that you gave that trust to blindsided you without your awareness and consent. And when you rebuild from something that traumatic, and you say, okay, you know what? There is a gigantic lesson to be learned. And when I pick up the pieces, and it is a messy, sticky process, it's not graceful, it's not pretty. When you do, you just become the strongest, wisest, boldest, most empowered version of yourself that you had no idea existed.
That's awesome. This is just coming to mind. I know, like, we started this whole conversation around how certain things can happen in our childhood, whether it's a like not major event, like your mom shushes you because she's on the phone or whatever, or it's something huge. Like my parents got divorced and my dad cheated on my mom and he was an alcoholic and then he died of alcoholism. I mean, like there were some pretty traumatic things that happened. So for people watching right now who did have traumatic experiences as like of betrayal, right, as children, maybe a parent left or something happened, right? Can you help people like deal with that stuff that's like 30, 40, 50 years in the past?
Oh, yeah. Here's the thing. We've been told that and taught time heals all wounds. And we've been taught, let's say if it's romantic betrayal, a new relationship will heal it. I have the data showing that's not true. Healing it will heal it. It follows you like a shadow. We've had over 3,800 people take the post-betrayal syndrome quiz assessment on the site. And I have people saying, my betrayal happened 30 years ago. I'm unwilling to have a relationship again. My betrayal happened 40 years ago. I'm still feeling the hate. My betrayal happened 15 years ago. I feel gutted. This stuff doesn't heal without addressing it. And something that goes as far back as, when you were a little kid and you found out that your dad cheated on your mom, it's a wound. And this stuff needs to be uprooted. It needs to be addressed. It needs to be healed. It needs to be healed. And we think, talk therapy can be wonderful, but this stuff is in the tissue. We need all kinds of different modalities, whatever works for us, our unique combination to get this stuff up and out and to find meaning because of the experience. Whatever the meaning is. I mean, Andy, look at the work you're doing. I doubt you'd be doing the work you're doing had you not been through what you've been through.
Right. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. There's so many things. I remember when we did our Overcoming Codependency event, the whole reason that came to be is because I grew up in the right scenario with the alcoholic parent, and I watched my mom and her enabling behaviors. And I mean, I had so many tendencies of, right, and still do, right? It's a work in progress. It's people pleasing and finding confidence in others instead of myself, right? And like all that stuff is always a constant practice and work in progress. But yeah, had I not had my own issues with codependency, that we would have never put this amazing event out into the world, or, I mean, it's yeah. So
that's it. And look at the amount and the number of people you served and you helped because of your own challenge. Right. That's the beauty in it. That's saying, okay, this stinks, but let me find a way to help others. If anything is going to catapult your healing, it's service.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
In whatever form. One form of service just that I know you for is in these amazing summits that you do, and the service that you're giving to so many people. It's healing you as you're sharing your message and as you're giving space for other people to learn and grow.
Right. Absolutely. And I will give credit to my amazing partner, Ike, who came up with the idea originally of that particular event, because that really, sparked something in me to do more of these things. And we can't continue to do more of these things because it was just like, okay, like, well, if you're struggling with codependency and issues from your past, right? Like, why don't you just get together a bunch of people and start talking about it, right? And it's amazing. And then to be able to help other people who are struggling with the same thing, and people right now who are struggling with low self-esteem, right? We are on this journey. We all have an individual journey, but it is a joint journey as well, and we can help each other. So I just love it. So
you're so right. And it makes us realize we're not crazy. We're not alone. And there are other people struggling with the same thing. And it's not to keep us stuck. It's to have us realize there are other people out here, just like us and no different than us. Maybe the circumstances were a little bit different, but everybody wants to be happy. Everybody wants to heal. And learning, even if it's just the slightest bit of a tip or two from one person, the next person, that's what we're here for.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So okay, we're running a little low on time, but I do want to make sure that we shift gears for a minute, because we talked about this before we started this talk, mm-hmm. Debi. So a lot of the community of Avaya are LGBTQ people in the LGBTQI community, and I know that people struggle with different, really unique forms of insecurity and low self-esteem around that issue. And I know you have a personal story around that. So could you share a little bit about that and how people watching right now who are part of that community might be able to boost their own self-esteem?
Sure. Well, first of all, I want to say it's a unique struggle because it's something that I'm not, personally, I never struggled with, but I imagine just not feeling fully accepted, it's got to stink. That's got to be really hard. And I have 4 kids, and my oldest daughter came out her last year of high school, and I remember how unhappy she was, and she never spoke about it, never talks about it, just so unhappy. And as a mom, you're as happy as your least happy kid. Mm-hmm. And she was just so unhappy, and it was the burden that I guess she was thinking, am I going to lose the love and respect of the people I care about most, and carrying that. And I'll never forget how she told my oldest son is her best friend. They're very close, and she told him first. And then from there, she told my husband and I, and we were like, that's it? That's the whole big thing you were so worried about? Mm-hmm. And it actually took a couple of years before she told my younger son and daughter, and they both cried. And she was like, oh no, what am I going to lose them? And they cried because they would have liked to help her. Mm-hmm. And what was so interesting about what she went through is she was so angry and so unhappy. And knowing that she didn't risk the love of her family, she lost 50 pounds, and she's little. It fell off of her. She was carrying that burden, and she came out with a book, Coming Out Happy, Life Doesn't Have to Suck. And she actually is a certified life coach for 25 and under, helping them with their self-esteem and identity. And it's so, what she tells me is there are so many young guys and girls who their parents throw them out of the house, or they're so unwilling to accept them for who they are. And she tries to help the parents and helps them. Mm-hmm. And it's such a shame, because as a parent, you just want your kid, I can only speak for myself. I just want my kids happy, and to see how happy she is because she's being honest with who she is. What more could I want? Mm-hmm. I don't know. I see the other parents who just give their kids, and maybe it's because of their religion or their upbringing or whatever, but all they're going to do is sever their relationship with their kids. Your kids are number one. And seeing my daughter so happy and being true to herself and now helping others do the same, who cares? Yeah. That should be the worst thing that happened. Like that's a bad thing. Right. If you're looking at that like that's a bad thing, I look at it and say, your kids could be on drugs. Your kids could be stealing or whatever they're doing, because your kids being honest about themselves. I don't know. Yes. See if you can find a way to accept that, because there's a lot of hurt when you don't.
Mm-hmm, right. It reminds me around your work in betrayal. So there could be people watching right now who have had that like ultimate betrayal of their family based on coming out, and obviously you're helping people through that very emotional, painful journey. And I just wanted to make a note of it. I just think that, I love that you do what you do, and your daughter does what she does, and she's loved and accepted. And we talked about before we got on this call that our two daughters, one of their best friends is transgender. And it's amazing to be able to support people that we love in our life in becoming the most confident, authentic, right person that they can be, and accept them for who they are. And I wanted to throw that in there in the world of confidence and low self-esteem and insecurity, because I know so many people, right? We have so many gay friends and lesbian friends and trans friends and whatever that really struggle with this in just such a different, like unique way than anything I can imagine. And I just want everyone watching, to know that we love you and support you, and, you're so welcome here.
and my daughter moved out to San Diego recently, and has the most amazing group of friends who completely accept her, adore her, whether they're gay, not gay, even her girlfriend. It's just, I just want her to be accepted and loved. And as a parent, I just can't imagine what more you'd want for your kids. I think a lot of parents bring kids into the world to be just like me. It's like, this is what I expect of you. I can't even tell you how many people, I remember, because my third goes to, we're in New York, and she goes to University of San Diego. And they say, and I had so many people saying, you're letting her apply there? I'm like, how does a kid get self-esteem? It's by spreading their wings. It's not for me to say, this is the life you're supposed to live. I didn't, I'm your mom, but it's your life. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I just look at parenting in a whole other way.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate you sharing about that and adding your, personal experience around that. That was just awesome, and want to be able to make sure that everybody feels like they're heard and included in the conversation, no matter what kinds of struggles that they've had in life. So since we are relatively low on time now, let's talk about a couple things. So there's 2 buttons below this video, and one of them leads over, I think, to that quiz you were talking about, mm-hmm. which is free. And then also a program you have. So please tell us about those.
The Betrayal to Breakthrough program is the result of this study. What the study proved, this is what we need to heal. So if you imagine you've been to an amusement park, there are the little kid rides. If that child is willing to sit in that little car and go to the end of that ride, they will predictably get to the end of the ride and go down that track. It's the same thing. The Betrayal to Breakthrough program predictably takes you from whatever stage you're at, from one stage to the next, It's not just based on me winging it. It's based on what the study proved, my own experiences, women in the study, and it works. And we have, I would say, at least 50% of people who go through the program are so excited by their healing that they can't help but want to pay it forward. So once they go through the Betrayal to Breakthrough program, they're eligible to become either a certified PBT, post-betrayal transformation support group host in their local area, or practitioner if they're a coach, healer, therapist, doctor. And my intention is to have these hosts and practitioners in every country, in every state, eventually every few blocks, and then my job is done.
Awesome. Thank you. So everyone, if you are interested in that, and if you have been through a betrayal recently or not, right? 30, 40, however many years ago, right? Like, this is a really amazing program. And I know people from our last event really enjoyed it, who went through it. And so please take advantage of that if you're interested. And then, so the other button is the quiz, right? The free quiz.
Post-betrayal syndrome. Yeah, this is to see to what extent you're still struggling. And a lot of people say it's a little jarring taking the quiz, but again, as you said, you can't change something you're not aware of. So you'll become very aware about all the different symptoms you're walking around with that are tied to an unhealed betrayal.
Awesome. Thank you. Excellent. So are there any last insights, anything else that we've left out of this conversation that you want to touch on before we hop off?
I think we covered a lot, but I would say, as far as self-esteem and confidence, I get how it can be completely shattered. I've been there, and it hurts. It hurts. I know that pain. But I promise you, I'm no different than anybody listening. It just takes a willingness to say, I'm just going to keep putting one foot in front of the other and just taking something really bad and doing something good with it. And I promise you will be shocked, amazed, and blown away by who you become. Just keep putting one foot in front of the other.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for doing this and all the work that you're doing in the world. I really appreciate you sharing this with our audience today.
Oh, Andy, thanks for giving us an opportunity to share our messages. Really.
Absolutely. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning into this latest class with Debi, and we will see you on the next one. Bye, everybody. Yay. Excellent. Hey everyone, I just wrapped up a great class with Debi Silber, and she talked with us about boosting confidence and self-esteem by overcoming your biggest crisis. Much of her work is surrounding betrayal and overcoming and actually healing from betrayal. So whether you experienced some kind of major life betrayal when you were a kid, and this is something that you haven't healed from, right? She mentioned time doesn't heal those wounds, right? Healing heals those wounds. I'm paraphrasing. But if it's not something that you've actually addressed and gone through these stages of healing with, I highly recommend you take a look at Debi's work further and potentially working with her to do that. So there's those things she talks about in the round of betrayal. And then I wanted to make a quick note of the example she talked about in the very beginning about insecurity, low self-esteem, right? We all have a voice that tends to say things like we suck, or we're not worth it, or we're not important, like Debi mentioned, all those kinds of things that which really negatively impact our self-esteem and our confidence in life. And then we start to look for proof around us, right? Our minds are these really kind of amazing machines that start to look for proof of, oh, that's right. It's true that I suck. It's true that I'm not worthy. It's true that all people will cheat on me. It's true that whatever, I have no friends, all of these things, because our mind is actually like trying to figure out that that's true for us. It finds it for us. We take it back in and we're like, that's right. There's our validation. There's our proof. So maybe this is something you're just becoming aware of in yourself. I know that when I first became aware of these things, I was like, oh my God, like this is actually happening, right? I'm actually looking for proof outside of me that I'm not good enough, that I'm not worth it, all of these things. So if this is you, just please know that you're not alone. This is a human condition. Everyone goes through this on some level. Maybe some people less, maybe some people more, but everybody goes through this on some level. So the main suggestion I have is question that little voice that's telling you you suck, questioning that voice that tells you you're not deserving, you're not worth it, you're not important, all of those things. She mentioned the example of the two people who looked at the same situation in two different ways, right? Coffee gets spilled on them. They each have two totally different worldviews, two totally different perceptions of that scenario. And therefore their life looks completely different. one person's life is building agreement from people around them that they're a victim of getting coffee, spilled on them, and here are all the reasons why my life's not working for me. And then there's the person that takes it in a whole different way, is vulnerable to learning about why, perhaps that person accidentally spilled coffee on me and what's going on in their life and how can I help them. But also just, it totally shifts that person's perspective of life being too short, right? Wanting to carpe diem, right? Take on life day to day, knowing that, it's not going to be around forever. So just take a look at your life and ask yourself, what's the empowering way to look at a scenario? The next time you're in a scenario that you might want to react in a certain way, what is the empowering context? How could you look at this differently? And how could that change, the next action you take after that and the action you take after that? So just a little food for thought. I hope you all enjoyed this latest class, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks, everybody.